I remember them in the operating room. It was an organ donation. And just to stay vague, I won't say which city since it could be
Yeah.
either one. And they were just like, there were cases that like I had to advocate for the donor because sometimes the the person that's allocating the organs in while we're in the operating room can get like a little greedy and little
Right.
yeah.
No,
So
that's true. I mean, being on the other side of things, like in the funeral home, it's like, oh my gosh, sometimes you feel for that person because it's just like sometimes a massacre. And I know it's helping other people, and I understand that, but for sometimes it's a very gruesome type of procedure. And yeah, I get that feeling too sometimes, and I could see both sides of it. So that's why I'm very torn. But I
mhm.
think being a mortician, you lean on that side of saying, do you really have to go to that extent? I don't know. I don't know what is your perspective coming from the other side, the tissue donation side, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm an organ donor, but I will never put it on my license. That's what I always tell people.
Mhm.
Because I have seen some bad interactions with like the family not being taken into account. Because whenever you first get your license and they ask you if you want to be an organ donor, you're like
Yeah.
16 or 17, you don't
Mhm.
realize that what you're consenting to. Like
Right.
it's like you're giving first person consent. So
Yeah.
when you're in an accident, your consent is on your license. So you automatically are um like giving your consent to the organ procurement organization of that area. And I don't think a
Sure.
lot of people are educated on that part of it. So
No.
I've seen like families not being able to say goodbye because they're
Yep.
flying in and just families uncomfortable with certain parts being donated because
Yeah.
even like a religious belief or anything, but it
Mhm.
like that first person consent trumps everything and they fully utilize that. So they don't
Yeah.
yeah, they don't morally take anything into account. They always just say like, "Nope, we have consent. We're going." You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's that tough thing, because one of my dear friends, he's my cousin who has passed away, but he has cystic fibrosis, and he had 2 liver transplants, and that helped save his life and prolong his life for a number of years. And he was on the waiting list for a double lung transplant, and it never came to be. And unfortunately, he passed away a little over a year ago. So I can see, as far as some of those organs, how life changing that can be. And that's why I've always said, like, to my family, if something crazy ever does happen, like my internal organs, I am like totally down and fine, donate away. But I think it's everything else that's where I start to see problems with, because it's more of a um more intrusive and more
For
more
sure.
it's hard to describe it without being too gruesome. But our funeral directors and morticians know exactly what I'm talking about limbs in the skin and things like that, that to me doesn't seem necessary to potentially save someone's life, especially because they're getting a lot of people that are, and this is a selfish thing and I'm aware of that, but they're getting a lot of people that are donators that are on their driver's license, and I feel like they can get plenty of what they need from that specific part. So I know that's
Yeah.
very opinionated, but just coming
Nope.
from that side,
I
I
totally
think you see
agree.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like and it was an amazing job. It was fascinating. It was exciting. It was interesting. Like just but there's so many moral issues I had with it just
Yeah.
because, yeah, it was just they would take everything and anything. And we would be
Yeah.
able to rule out donors because we'd read their medical chart, but they would still say like recover because even if we don't use it, we still get paid something. And I'm like, okay,
That's yucky. Yeah.
yeah. And then I ended
Yuck.
up getting really sick. Like when I first moved to Philadelphia, I was
Oh.
in the hospital for like 2 months and they were thinking it was probably from or recovering on a donor that I should not have been. And I
Oh
kind of
no.
remember what donor that was and calling it in and being like, I don't think this donor is like suited because of this, this, and this. But they're like, recover anyways. And, you're covered head to toe
Right.
with
Yeah, I've seen it once before.
fluids
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
time yeah. So, as
Mm.
a recovery coordinator, like we would be very careful because we're the ones with our hands there, like first person, like getting, doing the recovery. So it was like being on the front lines of it, we were always a little pickier about like our donors, but then we weren't always listen to. So that was like kind of the
Right.
frustrating part of it too.
Yeah. And it is a business too, just like any other business, just like funeral service is a business, that is too. And it's one of those tricky things, where is the line, and it can be moved, and it's very fluid based on who you are, where you're at, the business that you're a part of. And that's what makes this whole industry a challenge. And part of the reason why some people maybe go against it and seem anti our overarching industry, because they think it's, you know, to be profiting off other people. And that's just absolutely not the case. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to help in whatever way, shape, or form it might be. Like for being in tissue dentistry, you're trying to save people's lives. Like if you're in funeral service, you're trying to help the people that are still here and take care of the
Mhm.
person that has passed away. And the more we can do to talk about that, and to spread the goodness of what we do is super important as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just don't think people understand the extent of what's recovered either.
No,
So
no.
yeah, it just when you're at the driver's license place and you're just like, okay, yeah, of course I want to be a good person. I don't need it
Yeah.
when I'm gone, but it's like there needs to be maybe more extensive education on it, even though it is
Yes.
kind of like a gory,
Right.
uncomfortable conversation. But yeah,
Yep. That's the tough
'cause-
part, because it's like
yep,
you're 16 years old. You don't need to know what actually goes on with that. So that's like the other thing. It's like, how can we educate someone, and how can someone understand this sort of stuff? And it's so delicate and so tricky.
so delicate. Well, with tissue, it you have an option like that. You have to have like medical social background interview with like the family first. So if the family
Uh-huh.
doesn't give that, normally they can't proceed with like the
Got it.
tissue. But
Hmm.
with organs, it's like nope, they're yeah,
It is what
they
it is.
they they have full control. So that's
Wow.
yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
just interesting.
For our audience, this is Chrissy here today. Not only does she come from our realm of funeral and gift of life side of things, but she also has some very interesting background in the paranormal side of things. And would you call yourself a mediumist? Is that the appropriate word as well? As
I
we got some fun stuff to talk about here. So button, buckle yourself down, because I think Chrissy's gonna come at me a little too.
So I usually just say intuitive because if I say psychic, a lot of people think I have like a crystal ball and predicting the future. But like, so I do intuitive and like mediumship. So yeah.
So what am I thinking right now? I'm just messing with you
I know
because
actually
I'm
that's
thinking.
usually people's first question is like, can
I'm
you read my
sure.
thoughts? I'm like, I can't read your thoughts. I'm like, I don't even think I'd want to if I could.
Oh, that's great. Like, how many people do you help, and what does that look like? And I guess I would love to know the whole path of your career. You started off in funeral service and then moved on to other things, and no matter what, you've kept your ties to what our show is about, and it's everything post life. That whether it has to do with work or anything else. So, tell us a little bit about the career and where you're at now.
So, well, first I started off like graduating high school. I went right into art school. Couldn't, just didn't know what to do with myself. And
Yeah.
then I got into real estate appraisals, but then
Oh.
the market crashed like in 2007. It was like that
Yep.
big mortgage crisis.
Uh-huh.
And it was just depressing going into people's houses and doing like seeing the appraisals and pictures and just
Mhm.
everything was a foreclosure. It was just like soul
That's tough.
sucking. So
Yeah.
then I was like, well, maybe I'll go into like mortuary school because
Yeah,
I just
that's not as soul sucking at
yeah,
all.
no. Yeah. And it's always been like an interest of mine, just never without having a family background in it, I just didn't know it was possible.
Right,
So,
right.
and I ended up living 15 minutes away from, PIMS.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, all the pieces are falling into place and I trust my
Sure.
intuition. And so I just, yeah,
Yes.
went to mortuary school. Then I couldn't had the hardest time finding an internship, but luckily like a
Yeah.
funeral home did take me in, but I was like the intern's intern, like doing everything the intern didn't want to do or
Oh,
helping the intern, which I was just
right.
grateful to be in the like having a job like within the field that I was interested in. But then my instructor um helped me get an interview with Core. And then I ended up working
Mhm.
for Core and everyone was like, you're going to the dark side or the enemy side because yeah. But I was actually able to help a lot of like even my classmates with
Oh,
like core, like with just how, what the process, and actually had someone to like ask questions to, because you don't always have the resource to be like, why is this taken? What's this? Why do you do this? Like,
right.
and so it really helps to like, I had many people reach out to me with like good questions about the recovery process.
Yeah.
And then I went from core to gift of life, and then stayed home mom, and now I'm a full-time intuitive medium.
Wow, that's a fun pathway and a fun journey.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's really, I think, helpful knowing someone that was in your shoes for your funeral director friends to understand what's going on behind the scenes. That's very helpful, I'd imagine. Okay, so you were always sort of interested in this. Was there some things in your childhood that spoke to you that was like, hey, there's something different about me? Like I feel something or I see something. What was that like?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very haunted house.
Okay.
Now reflecting on it, I'm pretty sure it was like the land was haunted, and
Oh,
I nicknamed them the Amish people just because of the way they're dressed. And I actually have a picture of my two sisters on Halloween, and there's like a figure behind them, and she's in like a long dress, and it's not a
ooh.
family member. You can see right through her. It's crazy. I'll have to even send you the picture.
Yeah, please send it because I want to post it when we release this. We have to get
Yeah.
that
Okay.
out
I'll
there.
send it to you. I just
Cool.
realized it now. And but I saw these spirits. I could hear them talking. They spoke a different language. I would hear
Really?
them like just in our kitchen, like dancing. It was crazy. So, and then if I turn the lights off, I would just see like figures just walking past me.
Oh,
And one night I actually woke up, and my room was like the very back room, furthest away from the bathroom. And I woke up and I ran into someone. It was like a wool sweater of like a man's chest. And I was like, oh, sorry, sorry. And then kept walking. And I was like, wait a second, what was that? So, it was just like actually
no,
being able to feel the wool sweater. Like it was crazy. But
no, thanks.
I have a little sister who's like 11 years younger than me, and she was maybe 2 at the time. And recently we started talking about like our ghost stories about living there. And she's like, oh my gosh, the man in the sweater. I remember seeing him in my room. And this is the first time in like 20 years that we even talked about it, maybe even longer, but I don't
What?
want to count.
Oh
So
my
she was
God.
a little toddler, and she remembers seeing a man in a sweater. And I'm like, it was just like validated my story that like, or my experience of like running into him. And like, it was a wool sweater. I felt it. I felt his chest. And I just said like, oh, like half awake. I'm like, oh, sorry, sorry. And I just kept walking. And so,
It's
and
like
then
you're
there was
walking
like,
down the street in New York and you just bumped into someone. Oh, whoops, sorry. And then,
yeah,
wait,
exactly.
double take. Wait a minute. Whoa, that's crazy. So, what makes you think the whole land was haunted? And what language do you think they were speaking?
I feel like since I don't know, I feel like it might have been like Pennsylvania Dutch maybe, because
Yeah,
I'm in Pennsylvania.
yeah.
So that just yeah, I just couldn't really put my finger on like the language. I knew it wasn't English because I couldn't understand it, but and like it was a man and a woman. I'd hear them talking all the time. It was
Oh,
a wild experience. Just, and it was daily things like we would have to unplug our TV because it would always turn on, but even if we unplugged it, it would still be on. Like
what?
yeah, so my whole family started like experiencing their own things, and we would hear doors slam or like furniture move in our basement, and then we'd go downstairs and nothing was moved. It was just yeah, I've always wanted to go back to that house so bad, but I
You
don't know if the
have
owner
to.
would let me investigate it now.
You have to.
I know.
What do you like? Why does this stuff happen? Like that's a legit question.
Oh,
What is the reasoning? And it's not everywhere. So why in some places?
it's everywhere.
It's
Like
everywhere.
now that I've kind of opened up more, because like I kind of tried to suppress it just so I wasn't
Of course.
like I was weird enough being fascinated in death that like
Yeah.
I kind of just want to be like that weird in like middle school and high
Not
school.
take it
So
to
I
the
kind of
next
like
level.
yeah, so kind of like suppressed it or kept it to myself like more and more.
Yeah.
But now like that I've just kind of I would say like came out of the closet, like I'm open, I'm out,
Yeah.
like because it's still very taboo topic. And
Yeah.
especially being in like now we just moved to rural Pennsylvania, so I'm like hi. I'm like the new weird girl in the neighborhood, but but people have
Would-
been very welcoming. But
Good.
I now that I'm open to it, everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like, I would say there's more places that are haunted than not. Like, very few. And it's not that there's spirits are all the time, that like we all have visitors. Like, we always have people coming and going. And
Yeah.
um like, even our old house wasn't haunted, but I would have experiences here and there because like a grandparent would visit, or like,
Right.
and like just being sensitive, I could hear them, sense them, see them.
Yeah.
So I just, there's more spiritual activity than I think people even realize or want to realize.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm totally with you that people have their blinders up to that kind of stuff, and if you just open up yourself to that experience and allow it, I think it comes through. I've had that feeling before too, for sure. Specifically thinking about my grandparents, like getting that feeling that they're there or they're around, or my cousin who I just talked about. I get that feeling sometimes, and it's super eerie and it's indescribable, but it's like you feel them with you. And I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful thing. Like that
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
scare me. That makes me feel so joyous that they would want to see. I could tear up just like thinking about that and
Yeah,
talking
you
about it,
just feel so
honestly.
loved. And
Yeah.
we actually have like a spirit that follows my family. So it's someone that my husband knew, but I had never met. And so I
Yeah.
never met him ever. And anytime I get a reading or do a practice reading, he always comes through and I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Um, but
Who do you
he
think
said
it is?
well, he's like a friend of my husband's
Yeah.
family.
Okay.
And I just don't think his, like, he's given me messages for his family before, but they're just like not open for it. Cause not everyone is. And like,
Right.
so I'm just like, okay. But he, even when we moved, he's like, can I still come with you guys? And it's just like, I think it's like the highest compliment. He's like, I love your family. You're so fun. You guys are so lovely. Like, there's so much love and joy
Wild.
and happiness because I host parties and like I do
Yeah.
all the holidays. And so he wants to be with us. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought like that would be such an awesome compliment, but like it's an amazing compliment.
That's wild
And
stuff.
yeah, and
That's
I've never met
crazy.
him in life, but now I talk to him. He helps me even go get spirits when I'm doing mediumship readings. He does protections for us. Like, it's I know if you don't experience it or you don't really understand it, like it can sound like crazy talk, but
Right.
it's
Right.
something I never thought I would experience either. I didn't even know
Yeah.
it like was a possibility. So
Whoa, weird. Weird in a good way. Like that's super crazy. So what led you down the road? What was like the final kick that you needed to go to this? Or was it, becoming a mom and having all these experiences and it wasn't going away and you're like, I just got to double down? What was it like getting to where you are now? And um tell us a little bit about it, because I don't honestly know like that much. And I'm super fascinated by it too. Like I'm into this stuff. So you got to give me a more of a rundown so I
oh
can get
yeah.
familiar, and same with our audience.
Sure. So like it's like everyone can do it. So that's what I like to teach now. So like I actually started like an LLC to try to get people to open up and understand that they can do this. They can communicate because like we're all it's more about listening than anything. But when I was
Right.
a stay-at-home mom, I just kept having experiences. I kept doing research or reading books and just trying to taking classes, just trying to figure out my abilities and like how to control them. Cause like I was like Cub Scout like mom or whatever. And like
Yeah.
during some of the meetings, it was like at a church and there was like a spirit there that kept, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so distracted. I can't even figure out like how to tie a knot, you know? So it's just like, it was everywhere. So I'm like, I need to get this under control. So, once we moved in July of last year and, I just had this like whole, like I listened to my intuition all the time like that,
That's good.
like so many people ignore it. It's the best, guide for
Yep.
answers that,
Couldn't
so
agree
I
more.
have this
Trust your
like,
gut. I'm with you.
yeah, trust your gut. And it's like it's not
Yep.
just a saying, it's like a way of living. Cause like
Yeah.
you'll yeah,
Legitimately.
it's there for a reason. You're feeling that for a reason.
Yes. Yes.
And so once
Absolutely.
we
I believe
moved
it.
in July, we moved to like a old like military camp, which I didn't know until we lived here because I never heard of the town before. We
Yeah.
never we saw the house once.
This
Never
sounds
even
like the
explored.
making of like a horror film.
Yeah, exactly. My husband's like, "Are we literally basing this entire move on like, a feeling you're having?" I'm like, "Yes, we are."
Yeah.
And so we moved and it worked out for so many different reasons, but one thing was that it used to be a military camp, and there are just so many spirits here. And it
I'm
used to also be
sure.
a
Yeah.
potato farm. So the first spirit I started seeing was a farmer. And my son's like, oh, the guy outside with the red hat. I'm like, oh, well, I see him like in my bedroom and in the kitchen. But yeah, that guy. And then my husband started seeing him. So like, it was
What?
just, yeah. So it just kind of snowballed. So I'm like, I need to figure out how to control these spirits. So I have some friends that are mediums and stuff now, and some other resources to go to. And they started telling me how to, how to control it, how to like take my power back, how to like make sure like I set boundaries because
Yeah.
it was overwhelming. So then I started doing
Whoa.
like some crossovers, which I'm like, I never thought I would do that in a million years. And, even now I'm like, I'm going to do my crossover if it's real. Like, so, but then I asked for like signs, and it
Yeah.
just, yeah, it just kind of all snowballed once I moved. It just seemed to like just open up like crazy.
And you
So
get a lot of feedback, a lot of back and forth then, it seems like?
yeah, and I do a lot of readings. I started doing reading like professionally this year, and
Uh-huh.
so because I was just doing practice, and just I take it like so serious that like if I'm giving someone information, I want it to be like the highest, most genuine like information with the within my highest like integrity. Like I
Yeah.
take it very serious because these are a lot of people go for a reading because they really need it. They
Yeah.
need answers, guidance, they
Yeah.
closure. I mean, there's so many reasons.
Yeah.
So I just started doing more and
And
more readings.
what does that look like? So how do you get your readings, and where does it come from, and how does it come to be? It's so fascinating.
Yeah, so everyone has like their own process. So
Yeah.
in the beginning, it took me like 15 minutes to do like protections and call on everyone. But like now, I always say they come from God. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because like a lot of people say that like if you talk to God, you're religious, but if God talks to you, you're crazy. So so I just always like I just ask God to like channel messages through me, and I do a lot of angel work, and I don't know, I wish I would have known about my angels in my 20s because it might have been a little bit easier. But
Yeah.
now I call on angels, I call on my like deceased loved ones. Like I mean, they're waiting there to help us, and so I call on them, and then I literally like my process is just connecting, just like I want to connect with your energy, and then I just write, and I don't even remember what I write. And so um whenever I'm reading
What
it
do you mean by
for
that? It just
uh
kind of flows out of you?
yeah, like I have like notebook after notebook of just like, yeah, read it, and it's like, actually it's a bad example, but yeah, I have like notebook after notebook of just like a ton, just, yeah, it just comes out like what they might need help with. Like, and readings are for like today, so it's like I always say, what does this person need to hear, see, or acknowledge today? So it's
Yeah.
like maybe a problem that you're ignoring, or problem that you need help and guidance with, that like your angels or God's trying to help you, but like some people are just so blocked they can't hear or see or feel. Or so I'm just kind of like the middleman for that. And
Yeah.
so I do a lot of journaling, and then I read my journal to the person, the sitter, I guess. And then sometimes I pull cards, and that's usually for even like validation for me to make sure like I'm on the right
In the same
track.
page. Yeah.
And then for mediumship, it's basically like usually I ask for a name, and then I can call that person and try to get some information. And I see like pictures. So
Okay.
one person might be snowboarding. So I see like snow, and then I'll see like, someone coming down the hill. And so and then once I kind of get my validation pictures of who I'm talking to, then I get like messages, like words, and it's just like a
Right.
knowing, and these like they're not my own thoughts. It just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like once you feel it and you
Yeah.
kind of get used to it, like what's your thoughts and what's not your thoughts.
Yeah. Wow, that's, I mean, really beautiful, first of all, that you're able to channel that, do that, and do that for other people, really nice. Um, I used to do a lot of meditation, and I really should pick it up again because I like had those feelings before. Like there's something that are these my own thoughts, or like there's something bigger and beyond me, and it really gives you a sense of peace. That's the way I felt about it, and it's something that you get caught up with your day-to-day life, and but staying connected to those things is so important. And I think it gives you a better perspective on how you should be living, or ways that you can do it to be the best person or live the best life that you can. If Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exactly. And it's even comforting. Like we're never alone and we're all
Yeah,
doing this, we all have like a team with us all the time, no matter what we're doing.
yeah,
And just the more I even do readings, it blows my mind like how complicated every person's life is.
yes, yeah,
So I like to not know a single thing about the person. I don't want to know what they look like. Like just give me a first name just so I can write it in, so start journaling about that person and I know what name to call on to like connect with them. But
right.
yeah,
Whoa,
the less I know the better, but it's just
yeah,
like or easier for me cuz I just never want to like add my own opinion in,
right,
or
right,
so.
right.
And but it's just everyone is so complicated. Like even whenever you have to
Yeah.
write an obituary, it's like you have to take this person's whole life and family
Boil
and
it down
everything
to a
and put it
couple
into like
paragraphs.
yeah, you put it into like
Yeah,
one like or like two paragraphs and it's like
not easy.
yeah, I think so many people see other people as those two paragraphs, but like whenever you start doing your reading, I'm like, no one has it together. Like
No,
everyone's life is like a struggle. No, yeah, no one has anything figured out. Like no matter what you like, it just also teaches me never assume anything about anyone, and just
true.
to be careful to snap judgments. And it's just because
Yeah,
yeah, it's so easy to look at someone and be like, oh my gosh, they have it all, or they're so
yeah,
successful, or but it's just no, they're holding it together in public.
yeah. And they're dealing with different things maybe than you are, or whatever else. Everyone's dealing with it, and I think being able to cope with that, and sort of persevere through those things, and live like by that inner feeling, that inner gut, like I'm super into that. And it's just, I think you've given me a little motivation today to like get back a little bit more to that mindfulness. And I've said this many times, like us funeral directors are probably some of the most, or people in death care in general, are very mindful because they see loss so much that
Mhm.
you can only help but live in the moment, and embrace every day. As long as you aren't too jaded from everything that you're dealing with, it can give you a beautiful life because you're able to see it for what it is, and appreciate
Right.
things a little bit more too.
Yeah, and it's even just they always the saying's always like the funerals for the living, not the dead. But
Yeah,
I would have to tell the dead are there. Like
I believe it. Yeah,
I've heard some criticisms of funerals that they're like, why did you do that? I didn't want that. And like, it's kind of funny. Like, oh, you had the the reception at like my least favorite restaurant. Like, why haven't you picked this one? And it's just
yeah,
they call the family out on like
that's
so I'm
hilarious.
like, just to keep that in mind too, because it's not always, yeah, the dead
Right?
are most likely at their funeral because it's a very common thing. And also, just when I would do recoveries, so many times they're in the operating room, they're hearing these conversations, they're hearing how you're talking about them. And it
Yeah,
just like, that's why I think whenever I had a recent reading, I had two donors
yeah.
come through and they were just like thanking me for like standing up for them and
Mhm.
um just like in the opera and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what cases those were because of the way I don't know it was handled. And I
Yeah.
almost lost my job a couple of times over
Mhm.
kind of like standing up for what I felt was right, and just because I could experience that person in the operating room because you're in that room when they do pass. But
Yeah.
um my experience, I don't want to say it's like guaranteed, but like from my experience, that like our souls can leave our body before our body actually dies.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot, especially in like car accidents and everything. But
I believe it. Yeah.
so before we would cross clamp and the person would pass, and we can actually recover the organs, or like they would be in the room, and I'm like, just be mindful that they're listening. Like they can hear what you're saying about them, and
Yeah.
it's just it's not as I don't know final as people think.
Yeah.
Because you see this person just laying there and they're dead or they don't have brain activity, but like
Right.
their spirit, their soul, whatever you want to call it, or is still there. And so, but even to go back on your meditation,
Yeah.
um, meditation is so important. And I always tell
Yeah.
people that like meditation doesn't have to be like 30 minutes laying down in a dark room.
Right.
There's walking meditations, like five
Yeah.
minute meditations. Like
Hmm.
if you just get it in, like sometimes I even just do like a little quick meditation in the shower because like that's
Yeah.
I clear my mind. It's like the symbolism of like washing away old thoughts, and
Yeah.
it's just like so. I don't know. I have a friend who meditates when he drives, but he's practiced, and I think
Yeah.
it's a long
Yeah.
commute. So there's if you're sitting
I've
in
tried to
traffic.
implement that a few times too. I'm in Chicago, so you
Oh,
got to get in when you can. Yeah, it is good practice, and yeah, it can be done in a whole variety of different ways. It isn't always just sitting with your legs crossed in a dark room, like you said. There's
yeah,
a variety of ways, and it's really just about being mindful and present. And the deep breathing really does make an impact on you emotionally and physically too, with your
yeah.
body. Like you feel that difference.
And people get
Um,
frustrated when they're starting off. It's
yeah,
literally training your brain. I mean, it took me like a
yeah,
year to be able to like feel the benefits of meditation because like I would just sit there and like clear my mind, clear my mind, clear my mind,
yeah,
because thoughts would constantly pop in. But sometimes you just have to acknowledge those thoughts and then like send
and
them
let
off,
them go. Yeah, I
and they're
used to
popping
like
in your
to.
head for a reason. It's like you need to either resolve that
I
or
let it.
disconnect your emotion from that, a memory that might pop up. Like, so
Yeah.
it's part of the process. So it's just like, don't get discouraged.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I'd like to try to think of it as, clouds sort of passing you by, those thoughts, and not every thought you have is necessarily true by any stretch of the imagination, not at all. A lot
Right.
of times it's about just letting those thoughts just pass you by. And I agree, it does get frustrating because like when you do have like a really good experience with those, I know we're super deep into this stuff, and I think a lot of people are going to like it too, but once you have one of those experiences like in a deep meditative state, you just want to get back there. And
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
frustrates me, is because I'm like, oh, like, come on, thoughts. Like, I'm done with this. Like, get me to the good part. And that's the whole purpose of it, is because you have to like be zen and patient and willing to go through that to get to the outcome. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be about the outcome anyway. It should be about the whole process and the journey.
The whole
But
yeah, that's why it's
the
a
outcome is
journey.
beautiful. So it's like, come on, give it to me.
Exactly. I know. And like, oh, when you have yeah, like you can feel in your whole body your meditation, like whenever it's a good session or
No
whatever.
doubt.
Yeah. And I always use the Expand app from the Monroe Institute. Love it. I want to say it's
What's
like
that?
$10 a month.
Okay.
So Monroe Institute is just like, uh, I've always wanted to go, but I haven't gone yet. But it's like on my bucket list, and it's an institute of just how the mind works and how to train your brain. And it's amazing. Those meditations, I always say they're my like see Jesus moments, because like I
Mhm.
have like sometimes very spiritual experiences
Definitely.
whenever I get like a deep meditation,
Yeah.
and I've only been able to go that deep with that app. So
Wow.
just as a
Okay.
suggestion, because there's so
I'm
much out there. Because I
I'm
started off with
downloading it now.
YouTube, and then I went to like different
Same.
ones, and I'm like
Yeah.
the Expand one is my go-to.
Okay, good.
So,
Yeah, because I definitely started on YouTube, Calm,
yeah, calm.
yeah, and I didn't get. I was better off like doing my own personal thing, than going down that road for whatever reason. Just everyone's different too, I'm sure, and it's your own specific
For sure.
thing. But thank you for the recommendation, because I definitely want to give it a go. And it sounds good. It sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
it's amazing. And I actually did one earlier today just to like
Get more
I
of
had
it.
some readings, and then our talk. So I was just like, I should probably clear my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it is so helpful,
It's
especially
so helpful. And
when you're
the
dealing with a
crazy
lot of
thing is,
things. Yeah,
oh,
it's
sorry.
no, it's that when you're dealing with a lot of things, it is extremely helpful, and just makes your day-to-day life a little bit better. And it's hard because you think, I don't have the time to be just to meditate. But the funny thing is, like, the more rushed and crammed you feel, like the more you need it. It's
Yep.
one of those like catch-22 things where it's like, I don't have time to meditate. Well, the whole reason
That means
you
you really
probably
need
feel that
to.
way is because like you really need to.
Yeah. And especially like the more
and, that,
like
and
people
that's me.
interactions I get, if you have like a funeral with like I mean, every funeral is heavy to some extent, and all
Yeah.
that energy is there, and like you need to get rid of what's not yours, because like it sticks with us. And
Yeah.
um it's just so important to like clear those thoughts, and just kind of reset.
Yeah, it's very true. And I feel like every time I get away from doing these practices, like someone like you, like I'm sure you believe this sort of stuff too, that pops into your life and it's like, hey, you got to get
Yep.
back to doing that. Like, come on, what are you thinking? It's
Yep.
happened to me several times, like over the, I've tried to off and on, like since the last 5 years or something like that. But
Yeah.
we're literally having a conversation now. Like everyone else is just enjoying the show.
That's how it goes.
It is.
Yeah,
It
but
is.
it comes up in almost every reading. It's like, are you meditating or are you
Yeah.
getting in nature? It's just like, it's so, like, we're, for whatever reason, like our culture or society, like makes being busy valuable, but like being
Yes.
at peace is the value. And
I know.
just
You're
like
right.
that, yeah, like it complicates like our lives. We don't need complicated things to understand it. Like the
Oh,
way, even just like I started doing mediumship and intuitive readings and stuff, just like I stopped, like stop worrying, stop thinking. And it's
right.
just like it kind of comes through whenever you just like we complicate everything so much. Like
Yeah.
even whenever it comes to like religious beliefs, and
Mhm.
just it's as simple as just like talking to God or talking to angels or whatever you want, like whatever your
Whatever you
terms are,
believe.
talking to the
Yeah.
universe. Like it's just
Yeah.
as simple as going outside in your bare feet. It's just,
Yeah.
it's whatever is simple is what works, or is what
Yeah.
is meant to work. And we're
Yeah.
just not taught to
No.
do the simple things anymore.
Encouraged to be busy. It was very well put. Uh, and the whole purpose of it is like, I'm going to go and work so hard and do all this. And like, so I can like be more still and be like, take that, vacation where I can not have to live like this. And like, everything is working towards like an end rather than just like living and working just to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, and you're always going to be in want, whatever, like,
Always. Yeah.
and it's just like, just to take a moment and be like, I
Human
now
nature.
have what I wanted. And
Yeah.
so it's like, just so many times life passes us by because we're trying to keep achieving things instead of like celebrating what we've accomplished and what we did,
Yeah.
bring into our lives, and what we have, done, and what we do have. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why we complicate all of it way too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm vibing with you. I'm on the same page with all that stuff. That's
Yeah. It's like
really
once I
cool.
simplify everything, and just,
Yeah,
and all the answers are within. That's why even with mediumship, it's
yeah,
all comes from within. Like
yeah,
your thoughts are your reality. So the thoughts you don't want, you dismiss them or you get rid of,
yeah,
and the crazy thing is like our brains are like kind of set as like a default of like negative thoughts. For
yes.
whatever reason, we're just like default in like the negative.
I
So
think
it's
it's
like train your brain to just think positive. Like,
right,
and
right.
so I just say like certain affirmations like during the day. Like I'll be like, I choose to live in heaven, because a lot of people choose to live in hell or choose to
Yeah,
live in chaos. But like
yeah,
you choose what you live in. And I
yeah,
just think saying some affirmations like only good things happen to me, because if you're going on like a job interview, or
yeah,
you have like a big day ahead of you, it's just like remind yourself like only good things happen to me. Like it's
yeah,
like that life's happening like for me, not to me. And so it just, you
yeah,
have to retrain your brain, because you don't want to always assume something bad's going to happen or like something negative is going to happen, because that's what's going to
yeah.
happen. It just,
It does.
and it's not even like manifesting or anything like that. It's just like you really are just like, you live in like our mind is our world.
Right. And you're
So yeah.
attracting that sort of stuff. I'm fully, and it's like that thing, what you resist persists.
Yep.
That's the same vibe. And if it's that constant negative thought or that constant, you know, hitting this mental wall, and it's like, well, yeah, because you're thinking about it all the time. If you think you're going to get sick, you're going to get
It
sick. That is a fact. Like
never fails. Yeah.
and doctors and scientists, and they'll all agree with that too. Like, it's like people that, there's that syndrome that, they
The
think everything is
Munchausen.
wrong with me. I can't remember what it is, but they think that everything is wrong with them, and it ends up like, of course you're going to find something wrong with you when you're looking for it. It's like always going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's, I know people will question that stuff, but I
Oh, I
fully
know. But
believe
just
that.
from my own experience, yeah, it's
Same.
like what, yeah. So if
Yeah.
I ever have like a negative thought, I'm like, that no longer serves me, or I'm not giving that any energy, or I'm just not
Yeah.
acknowledging it, just but it takes a lot of practice, like retrain your brain, because yeah, our default setting is to have negative thoughts. I don't know if it's like a survival thing to always predict the worst, but like we're not living that same lifestyle. So it's like, now
Yep.
predict the best,
Yep.
because then, you know, I
I
always
was
say get your hopes up. So many people are like, don't get your hopes up, because if it doesn't happen, I'm like, get your hopes up, because you know what? If that doesn't happen, something better is going to happen,
right.
or just change
Yeah.
your way of thinking. So
Yeah.
yeah, so many
It's a
people are like, I don't
mindset
want to get my
thing.
hopes up about this. I'm like, get those hopes up. You know,
Yeah.
that's how it works.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's what you want to do. And I agree.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I think that negative mentality comes from generations, and like even back to cavemen or whatever, like always having to be on high alert for bad things to happen to you. Even a couple hundred years ago, you'd be killed or put to death for nothing in particular almost.
Yep.
So the world has changed so much, but it's still hardwired into our human nature to have some negative thinking, and we got to untrain that and unprogram that within ourselves.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, and we're the only ones that can do it for ourselves, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
So
it is.
yeah. I say a lot
It
of
is.
times, even my readings, that like people will be like, I spent $8,000 last year on therapy, and like I got more out of an hour with you, because it's just like, you don't need to outsource your healing or your brain
Yeah.
training or anything. It's like, yeah, it's just to remember just to go back to the basics, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Speaking of, do you have anything for me? You gotta help us out, and the audience. If you've been with me for a long time, you know me at least decently enough. So I think we could have some fun with it. And I'm
So
nervous.
I got a few little things for you. So
I'm literally sitting on my hands in nerve.
but yeah,
We're doing
just
this
like
live.
so this is like my like reading room. So I don't know.
Okay.
But from doing some earlier today, I don't know if this is like a lingering spirit, but I also, when we first started, I saw like an orb around you. So I don't know if you'll notice it. Like it was like right by your shoulder, and it kept like moving.
This
So I
one?
don't know if, so yeah, you definitely have someone around you.
Okay.
But
All right.
I'm not normally good at getting names, but
Okay.
usually ask for a name, because like I always say it's not like a party trick. I'm not just pulling names out of a hat. It's just like then I can call on the person. But for whatever reason, I kept getting the name George. So I don't know if that's someone.
Not really,
But it could
no.
just be like even like a guide that's helping to bring these
Okay.
messages through. It could be so many different things.
Okay.
So I did see like a big picture frame that had like white and purple flowers, and
Okay.
it was over like kind of like a beige, like kind of fancy couch. And I don't know if that's like something like in your home or
Mhm.
in like at work. And just getting that like an older man always sits on this couch, and he's like, I'm always on that couch, like watching you guys, like you're doing a great job.
Hmm.
um and then I also got that, I don't know if like your office, you have like a lot of papers. I just heard like you need to get rid of the papers and like get organized, and
Okay.
that like kind of get with the times, because like you don't need all these papers anymore. Like why are there papers everywhere?
Mm.
Um and then I also got that
Interesting.
he was wearing a suit that meant a lot. There was like a lot of meaning behind the suit that he was like buried in. And that he's like, I'm still wearing the suit. He's like, I'm never taking it off. So when he comes through and he's like showing himself, it's like a suit. I want to say it's like kind of even like a skinny, like almost like squarish tie,
Okay.
and very, very tailored.
Mhm.
Um, and that he was, I don't know if like someone in your family is currently pregnant, but he was kissing a baby. And I think it's a girl, because
Yeah.
he had a baby doll in his hand, and the baby doll, it was like kind of just like a stuffed animal baby doll.
Yeah. My
Um,
sister just had a baby, so yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And a girl. Yeah.
A girl,
Yeah.
okay. So he definitely kissed her
Yeah.
before she came here.
Aw.
And then there's something big with fingernails. Like I don't know if he was very meticulous and he was like always cleaning his fingernails or something, but it was just something like he focused a lot on fingernails. I don't know.
Huh,
That's why I
interesting.
just learned to
Okay.
say everything, because like
No,
sometimes I'm
throw it
like,
out there.
yeah,
No, because I've got some thoughts and ideas on some of the things for sure.
okay. And then um I don't know like if he even like passed from something with like the stomach, because like I was just like very nauseous, and like kind of just felt like I was going to be sick. Like I just felt very nauseous whenever I was writing this.
You did. Oh,
And
I'm sorry to hear that.
and then the last thing I saw was just like it was like a lot of mirroring, like two benches that were like facing each other, like wooden benches. But it just
Mm,
seemed like, I don't know if there's like a mirror where it kind of makes like a funhouse kind of mirror that makes the room look like it's mirroring itself, or couldn't really quite I just wrote mirroring and I just drew what the benches look like. So they're like
yeah.
almost like pews, but they're benches. And
Yeah.
yeah, just maybe there's a mirror in the middle of them, but it was something with that and like
Huh.
it's mirroring. I don't, yeah. So,
Interesting.
and then I also just heard that like you have lots of love around you and that like you're just so loved. So, yeah.
I feel
And that,
that. I'm very lucky to have that. That's for sure.
yeah. Oh,
Wow, that was
God.
beautiful. Thank you.
So, yeah,
Uh,
that's why I wrote it down. So I'm like, can't get, can't get
yeah,
too distracted by
no,
it.
that's really cool. And um, like I have some things that we definitely the painting and the couch. Like we recently did some renovations in my house. I was like, yeah, that's pretty spot on. I get this feeling that it was my grandfather, my dad's dad, who was the funeral director, um, before my dad, and I'm fourth generation funeral
Okay.
directors,
That makes
so
sense.
and that would make sense that he was wearing the suit and watching, and I feel like I felt him before, and I kind of I like to think about him when I'm looking for guidance too, because he really ran his funeral home and his life like a business, and it was very successful and did things really well. And I got that get the feeling that the generation between, and this is not anything against my dad at all, it's more about who he was surrounded with, unfortunately, that it did get away from that. And I could see the papers piling up and the getting with the times absolutely necessary.
Oh yeah, he was
Which
very meticulous, so that's probably why even just
yeah,
yeah. Maybe it's like
yeah,
down to like the fingernails, like make sure their nails are clean, make sure like yeah, it
yeah.
just seemed like he was like looking over every detail. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that, and that was probably him in the prep room. I bet you, be like, you got to fingernails or something nasty like that. Although I am a stickler for fingernails too, both in the prep room and in real life. Even though I like bite mine sometimes, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was very interesting. Like, what do I do from here, or what do you recommend people taking away from things when you have an experience like that? And it's just pretty cool
Um
that you
Just
felt
believe
those.
it. I always say
Yeah,
like if you ask for a sign and you receive it, don't be like, okay, well that's a coincidence. But like just
right.
be open, like, and if you are having these experiences, when you think of them, when you dream of them, if you feel them around, they're around you. It's like stop questioning everything. It's like
Yeah,
just if you're experiencing it, it's real. And I think so many times we're just like afraid to sound crazy because like
yeah.
I sometimes things that
I
come out
know,
of my mouth, I'm like
I know.
that sounds crazy.
Yeah,
But like
I know.
but just those experiences are real. Like I ask for signs all the time. I even if I have a hard time with a decision, or if I'm like, am I wrong in this, like show me a
Yeah.
sign of like a donkey, like that I'm just being an ass about it or something. And like I'll either see the donkey, and I always give it like a timeline. I'm like within the next like 24 hours, even though like time's different on the other side, but like just for me, I'm like if I don't see it within 2 days, it's like move on. But like
Got it.
cardinals are always a spiritual
Yep,
sign.
yep.
And
Mhm,
just yeah, you can ask for anything. Like I live in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and I asked
mm.
for a sign about it, like if this move and everything was like the right move, because
Right.
moving is always challenging, especially with a child starting a new
Sure.
school, friends, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I asked for the sign of a dolphin. And I bought something off of Facebook Marketplace, and I pulled up to the house to buy, it was like a bike rack for my car.
Uh,
And the person's mailbox was a dolphin. And I was
no
like, how am I
kidding.
going to see a dolphin in the middle of nowhere? So I'm like, I need something hard, like something that I'm not just going
That's
to stumble upon.
crazy.
And they like
Whoa.
messaged me. They're like, oh, we're just leaving it by the mailbox. I'm like, perfect. Like less interaction, And I
That
just
couldn't
pull
be
up.
more in your face if
Yeah. And
if you
I sat
tried.
there for a minute. I was like, okay, yeah, I get
I
this.
did
But
get the
yeah.
chills. That would make me go crazy.
Yeah. So
Whoa.
I always say like ask for signs, and when you get them, believe them, because it's
Yeah.
really just that simple.
Yep.
you know,
It
and it's the
is.
simplest way to communicate, and it's a good starting point to start communicating until
Yeah.
you can start really like listening, and obviously like also use your dreams as like,
Yeah.
a way to communicate, like ask for guidance or a message or like in your dreams, and just, it's a your subconscious is working with you.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, just
Oh,
simplify it. So
beautiful. That's
yeah,
beautiful. I'm with you. And I hope everyone takes all that stuff to heart too. And it's something that anyone can apply to their life. And if nothing else, it's going to make it a little bit more pleasurable. I can guarantee you that.
100%. Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes life just easier knowing that you're not ever alone and you're not doing
Yeah.
anything alone, and
Yeah.
you call on your team, your whatever you want to
Yeah.
believe and whatever
Yeah.
name you want to put to it. It's just, you're just ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, Chrissy, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation and getting to know you and talk to you, and you getting to talk to whoever it was coming through. And that was really fun and very special for me. So I appreciate you doing that. And where could our listeners find you if they want to talk to you or have an experience as well? Because she's great to talk to. Clearly, I could go on for days.
Yeah, I might have more I'll email you if more comes through, because
Yes,
sometimes that
please.
happens. Yeah, and I'll
Yes.
send you that picture too. But
Yeah.
I go under
Mhm.
wastedandafraid.com. I kind of want to simplify and make spirituality and mediumship and stuff like not so intimidating. So many people worry about getting a reading, or how do I do a reading, or what. It's like it's an intimidating thing to sit for if you've never
Yeah.
done it before. So
Yeah.
I just want to make it like kind of fun and
Yeah.
uh personal, but also just, find the funny side or like the entertaining side of, just death and what our loved ones and spirits and everything around us, like, can help us with, and just keep it light, because there's enough darkness and sadness and stuff,
Yes.
just to kind of, I focus on the positive and the fun. So
Yeah.
I do wastedandafraid.com.
Yeah. Go check her out. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining, and we appreciate you. Of
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
course.